Hello, today I'm going to be making some 1/16 scale barbed wire. The materials I'm using, I have some beading wire. This says number 28. I don't know if that's the gauge or not. It measures about 0.0125 diameter, which is a little bit thick for 1/16 scale, but still it's getting much smaller than that. It's getting hard to work with. So that's the material. The only material you need to actually make the barbed wire itself. The tools that you need are, I have a electric drill for winding the wire, maybe a couple pair of pliers, needle nose pliers, diagonal cutters, and I have a little screw right here that I'm going to use to hold the end of the wire, and I have some bar clamps clamped down on my table. This is the important part of the setup here, because we want to put tension on the wire. It's going to be pulled between these two parts, and you'll see that in a minute. And I have some little C-clamps, and I have some paper clips that I cut up just to make hooks for the end. So number one, we're going to take this wire and we're going to make a piece that's going to be a little bit longer than what we need here, because we're going to coil it, and as you coil it, it gets a little shorter. Take that and cut it. Then we're going to take the screw eye and we're going to insert that on the wire, and we're going to run that all the way down to the halfway point. So we'll pull that tight. Give it a couple of twists to hold it in place. And we're going to chuck that up in our electric drill. And we're going to wind the wire. Now you don't have to wind it too tight. Barbed wire was typically not wound very tight at all. So we don't have to do too much on it. But for the fact of trying to work with such small diameter wire, we're going to run it a little bit tighter than it actually would be for scale. Alright, so we got that part done. We'll unchuck this. And we'll take our clip, run through that screw eye, and just hook that on there. Now you can see that my wire is running a little bit long, so I can open this up a little bit more, spread the bar clamps a little further apart, like so. Then we can take that, the end of the wire, a couple of good turns to secure that on the other bar clamp. And this barbed wire actually works pretty good, because I've actually stuck myself and drew some blood. Alright, now once we get that on there, I'm going to tension this, and I'm going to pull on it, put some good tension on it. Because as we wrap the rest of the wire around that to make the barbs, we don't want to have this end just hanging out here soft, so it's got to have a good amount of tension on it. Not enough to break it, but maybe play some music on it. Okay, now to make the barbs. Barbs, each set of barbs is actually 2 wires, so actually you'll have something like that with the barbs sticking in different directions. This is so fine, it's hard to work with. That's small, especially my hands lately. I'm going to just put one set of barbs, and you'll see that. And for show purposes, being in the diameter, you won't notice the difference. Now I'm going to take, the length of wire is going to be about 1.5 times the wire that I have spread apart right now. So we cut that off. And we just have to have a starting place. So I'm just going to start right here in this loop, and I'm just going to, because the end can get cut off later on. That's just something to hold the wire in place to get started. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is start wrapping the wire. What you can do, depending on what your pliers look like, is the spacing between the sets of barbs. And if you want, you can draw a line on there, and this is just so that we get equal spacing as we go down. Now I'm going to come in here, I'm going to come down a little bit, and I'm going to go 1, and keep the turns right, 2, 3, 4, or 3.5. Now you can see why we need this tensioning, because if not, that would be kind of a real pain to hold everything in place. Go around here, holding it up tight. 1, 2, 3. Now, you notice that first time I went over the top of the pliers. Now I'm down the downside. I'm going to put the pliers on the opposite side of the wire. Come underneath it and do this. Then I'm going to bring this up here. Go across the pliers, the top, down, and around. And I'm going to just keep repeating this until I get all the way down. You may be kind of wondering why I'm going top to bottom. You don't really have to. But as you can see, we're making loops here. And what happens is that to get the barbs facing in different directions, you can see one barb's going to be facing down, one's going to be facing up once we cut these off. You can do it after the fact, you can twist it, but I figure, well, what the heck, why not do it as you're actually wrapping the wires? That way, all we have to do is just cut off those pieces, those little loops, to make the barbs. And you'll see after a while that this is just kind of a repeating process, and it works out pretty good. 1, and you can see we're moving pretty good here. So if you have a good sized diorama that you want to have a lot of barbed wire on, this process actually is probably the easiest that I've seen, and produces reasonably good results. Okay, now looking back, you see I did get two loops on the bottom. I said that's not much of a worry. Later on, once we take this off the jig, we can actually twist that to make them opposite each other. And it's probably better to do that before you wind up cutting all these little pieces off. Now, you can see that I've kind of run out of wire, ran a little short. Maybe 1.5 times, almost 2 times would have been a better number. So the length of the wire versus the parts that you're wrapping around. So we're going to take another section of wire, not a big problem, and we're just going to put it in here, twist these together, because again these loops are going to get cut off, so that won't matter any. Get our pliers. Okay, the next one is going to be going down and over, and we just resume with our wires. All right. The next step is to take our wire off Let's see if we can take a look at this up close, see what we're getting our result is. Okay, as I said a little earlier, we have the 2 loops on one side. It really doesn't matter. We can just increase one more twist, like so. So if they're opposite each other, they don't have to be opposite each other, but I find that it works out easier that way. And when you get fairly close, we don't want these barbs to be too awfully long. In fact, I probably even have them just a little bit long, but they're noticeable. Right, just a little closer like that one. And I've got carpeting on this floor in my office here, so I'm not really too thrilled about getting little pieces of wire stuck in the carpeting. So this is what we're looking at like right now. Now we have our barbed wire. You can see only it rolled up. You can take something to wind it on. It's going to expand back up after you wind it. So start out a little smaller than what you actually want your finished coil of barbed wire to be. I'll just cut that little end piece off. And there's our little coil of barbed wire. Just stretch it out, twist it, bend it, to whatever you like. And if you wanted to make it longer, you could always twist more wire right on the end after you make some more coils, or if you want to extend it, you can do the same thing we already did and just twist the ends together, open them up a little bit and make like a little barb joint, and then you can make that as long as you want.